Hello and welcome to the next video. This is module N4, the first of two videos, and in this one we're going to be looking at how we can find percentages of things using a calculator, and first of all without using a calculator. Now what you're going to need is your N4 homework booklet. We're going to work through this, and that's where you're going to do your answers and your checking. So if you've got that, let's make a start. So finding a percentage of an amount without a calculator. First up, what is 50% of something? Now to find 50% of something, we halve it, or in other words, we divide by 2. So let's have a look. What's 50% of 486? So let's do 486 divided by 2. We're finding half of it. So if we do a little bus stop there, look over on the right in the blue, and how many 2's in 4, how many 2's in 8, how many 2's in 6? So 50% of 486 is 243. What about 50% of 537? So we know what we've got to do. We've got to divide by 2. There's our bus stop. How many 2's in 5? 2, with 1 left over. How many 2's in 13? 6, with 1 left over. How many 2's in 17? 8, with 1 left over. But we've got nothing to hang that 1 left over on. So what we're going to have to do here is put in a 0.0. And then we'll put a point up on the answer line there, make sure the points are lined up. And now we can finish off by saying how many 2's in 10? 5. So 50% of 537, 268.5. Okay, over to you to have a go at one. What is 50% of 30.4? You know what to do. Press pause. When you want the answer, press play. Okay, so how'd you get on with that? 30.4 divided by 2. Well, we do a little bus stop and we say how many 2's in 3? 1 with 1 left over, and that gives us 5. And then the 0.2. 15.2 is 50% of 30.4. Next up, what's 25% of something? Now to find 25%, we find 50%, and then we find half of 50%. So in other words, we divide by 2 and then divide by 2 again. So what's 25% of 824? First up, that's not a misprint, we are going to find 50% of 824. So we half it, or divide by 2. And 824 divided by 2 is 412. But that's 50%. We want 25%. So we've got to find half of that now. So 25% of 824 is 412 divided by 2. And that will give us 206. So there's a question for you. 25% of 648, please. Press pause, work it out. Press play when you want the answer. Okay, how'd you get on? So let's do it the 50% way. So half of 648 is, there's a little bus stop to help us, 324. And now we've got to get half of 324. So there's our bus stop to help us. 2 into 3, 2 into 12, 2 into 4, 162. So that's how we find 25% of something. Okay, what about 75% of something? So let's have a look. What is 75% of 84? Well, first up, 50% of 84 is 42. So now we're going to find 25%, which is 42 divided by 2. So that's 21. And then to get 75%, we're going to add them up. Another way that lots of people use, they find 25% and times it by 3. It's up to you. The best way is the one that you're comfortable with. So over to you now. 75% of 74.8, please. You know what to do. Press pause, work it out, press play for the answer. Okay, so we'll do it this way. 50% of 74.8. Oh, there we go. Now make sure when you do a bus stop dividing the decimal that you line up the decimal points like that. And that's going to give us 37.4. We want 25%. So that's 37.4 divided by 2. So there we go, over on the right hand side. Line up the points. 2 into 3 is 1 with 1 over, 8 and 7. 18.7. To get 75%, either multiply 25% by 3 or add those two. I think it's easier to add them. You do whichever way you prefer. So there we go, 56.1. And as it says there, you could have done 25% and times it by 3. What about finding 10% of something? Well, this time we're going to divide by 10, or in other words, we're going to move the digits one place to the right. So let's have a look. What is 10% of 580? So let's write down 580. Now the number 580 is really 580 point, but we don't really pronounce that, do we? But we need the point there when we start moving the digits. So let's move all the digits one place to the right. So the 5 goes over there, the 8 goes over there, and the 0 goes there. So we're left with 58.0, or in other words, 58. Over to you. Have a go at these. Could you find 10% of those two, please? You know what to do. Press pause, press play when you got the answer. Okay, how did you get on? Let's have a look. 78.3. We're moving the numbers one place to the right. So the 7 goes there, 8 goes there, 7.83 and 254.05. We're just going to move them all one place over to give us an answer of 25.405. Excellent. So let's have a look at the next one. What about 5% of something? Well, the easiest way of finding 5% is to find 10% first and then find half of that. So what is 5% of 860? Let's get 10% first. Move all the numbers one place to the right. Now that's going to give us 86. But we don't want 10%, we want 5%. So we're going to divide 86 by 2, which will give us, and there's a little bus stop to help us, 43. So 5%, find 10%, and then half of that. One for you to do. Could you find 5% of 72, please? Press pause. Press play for the answer. How'd you get on? Well, 10% is 7.2. Now we don't want 10%, we want 5%. So we've got to find half of that. And there we are. Little bus stop there, giving us 3.6. Good. What about 20% of something? Well, to find 20% of something, we find 10% by moving the figures one place to the right, and then we double it, or times it by 2. 20% of 510. So first up, 10% of 510 is 51. So 20% must be 2 lots of 51, 102. One for you to do. 20% of 83, please. Press pause, press play for the answer. Okay, let's have a look. Well, 10% is 8.3. We move the figures one place to the right, but we want 20%, not 10%, so we double that, and we get 16.6. Good. What about 70% of something? Well, that's similar, isn't it? Let's find 70% of 350. Well, first of all, find 10%. It's 35. And 70% is 35 times 7. And we'll do a little multiplication like that. You might use a different way, but the answer is going to be 245. You might use a grid method or some other method, but the answer should be 245. Over to you then. 70% of 27, please. Press pause, press play for the answer. Okay, how'd you get on? Well, 10% is 2.7. There we go. Moving everything one place to the right. So 70% must be 7 lots of 2.7. So whichever way you multiplied it, hopefully you agree with 18.9. So, near the end now of all the manual calculations, what's 1% of something? Now to find 1%, we're going to move the numbers, not one place, but 2 places to the right. So what's 1% of 700? There's our numbers, and we know 700, we put the point in. So move everything 2 places to the right, 1, 2, and that's going to give us an answer of 7.00, or in other words, we could write that as just 7. So 1% of 700 is 7. What about 1% of 861? Okay, everything to the right 2 places. 8 moves across 2, so does the 6, so does the 1, and 1% of 861 is 8.61. Okay, 2 for you to have a go at. Press pause, press play for the answer. Okay, how did it go? 7543, 1%. Move everything 2 places to the right. So the 7 is going to go there. There's the 5. There's the 4. 75.43. And last down, 1% of 52.3. Move them 2 places to the right. So the 5 ends up there. Let's move that 2. And let's move the 3. So we're left with 0.523. And what do? We put a little naught in front. So it's 0.523. Excellent. Last one then. What if we had to find 3% of something? Well, we'd find 1% and multiply it by 3. So what is 3% of 320? Well, let's find 1% first. Let's move those figures 2 places. 3.2. Okay, so 1% is 3.2, but we don't want 1%, we want 3%. So we take 3.2 and times it by 3, 9.6. Okay, one for you to have a go at. 3% of 572, please. You know what to do. Press pause, press play for the answer. Okay, well, 1% of 572 is going to be 5.72. So 3% is 5.72 times 3. And there's one way of multiplying it. You might have other ways, but we should get the answer 17.16. Excellent. So we can find out, without a calculator, loads of percentages now. So to find 50%, we divide by 2. To find 25%, we find 50% and then divide that by 2. To find 75%, we find 50 and 25 and add them. To find 10%, move digits 1 place to the right. So to find 5%, we find 10% and halve it, divide by 2. To find 20%, find 10% and double it, or multiply by 2. And then finally, to find 1%, move the digits 2 places to the right. 3%, we find 1% and multiply by 3. Excellent. So let's have a go at an exercise. Over to you to have a go at, how many are there? 9 questions there. So you know what to do. Press pause, press play when you want the answers. Okay, let's have a look then. First up, 50% of 420. Well, we're going to divide by 2. 210. 25% of 420. We're going to take 50% and divide that by 2. So that's 210 divided by 2, 105. To find 75%, we're just going to add those two, 315. 10% of 420, move everything 1 place to the right, 42. 5% is 10% divided by 2. Now 42 divided by 2 is 21. 20% is 10% times 2, 84. 70% is 10% times 7, so it's 294. And finally 1% is 4.2. 3% is that times 3, 12.6. So that's it from me for this one, and in the next video I'll be showing you how to calculate percentages with a calculator and how to do increase and decrease percentage wise. Bye for now.